12:14 a.m., July 30th, 1945. The Pacific Ocean is quiet enough that the stars reflect off the surface like broken glass. Somewhere between Guam and the Philippines, the heavy cruiser moves steadily through the darkness, its bow cutting a smooth line through the water. Most of the crew are asleep below deck, exhausted after days at sea. The ship has already completed one of the most secret missions of the entire war, delivering critical components of a weapon so powerful that only a handful of people on Earth know it exists. Hours earlier, those parts were unloaded on the island of Tinian. Soon, they will be assembled into something that will change history. But for now, the ship is simply heading home. On the bridge, the watch officers scan the horizon out of habit more than concern. The war is almost over. Japanese naval power in the Pacific has been shattered. Enemy submarines are still out there somewhere, but the odds of encountering one tonight feel distant, almost theoretical. The ocean stretches in every direction, black and endless, the engines vibrating steadily beneath the steel decks. Nothing about the moment feels dangerous. 200 miles away, another vessel moves silently beneath the same water. The submarine commander has been tracking targets all evening, listening through headphones to the faint echoes of propellers moving across the sea. To him, the cruiser above is nothing more than sound. 4 distinct blades cutting through water. A perfect target. 12:15 a.m. 2 torpedoes leave the submarine's tubes. The first strikes the starboard bow with a detonation so violent it splits the night open. Fire erupts instantly as aviation fuel ignites. Men asleep in their bunks are thrown against steel bulkheads. Lights vanish. The ship shudders violently, metal screaming under stress. Seconds later, the second torpedo slams into the midsection. The explosion rips open the hull like a knife tearing cloth. Compartments flood instantly. Fuel tanks rupture. The deck tilts sharply as water pours into the wound faster than pumps can respond. Inside the ship, chaos detonates as quickly as the torpedoes did. Sailors stumble through black corridors, many still half asleep, searching for life jackets in darkness filled with smoke and steam. Emergency alarms howl across the decks. Somewhere below, men are already trapped in compartments filling with water they cannot escape. On the bridge, officers realize something that chills them instantly. The cruiser is dying, and it's dying fast. The order to abandon ship comes almost immediately, but the damage is catastrophic. Communications fail before a proper distress signal can be transmitted. Radios crackle once, then fall silent. In the confusion, many sailors never hear the command at all. Within 12 minutes of the first torpedo strike, the cruiser rolls violently to starboard and begins sliding beneath the surface. Nearly 900 men are thrown into the open ocean. Some leap, some fall, some are dragged under with the ship as it disappears. Then the night closes around them. At first, survival seems possible. Life jackets inflate. Groups of sailors gather together instinctively, clinging to floating debris, pieces of wood, rafts, shattered equipment. The water is warm, almost gentle. The stars above are impossibly bright. In the distance, the last bubbles from the sunken cruiser rise silently to the surface. Someone laughs nervously. Another man shouts that rescue will come at dawn. But rescue will not come, because no one knows the ship is gone. The cruiser was traveling alone on a classified mission. No escort vessels, No expected arrival report for several days. When it fails to appear at its destination, the Navy assumes the ship has simply been delayed, so the survivors drift. Morning arrives slowly, bringing the first real understanding of their situation. The sun climbs over the Pacific and reveals hundreds of men scattered across miles of open water. Some are injured, some burned by the explosion, many already weak from swallowing seawater during the night, and beneath them, something begins to move. The oceanic white-tip shark is one of the most efficient predators in the open sea. Unlike coastal sharks, it lives far from land, patrolling the vast emptiness where food is rare and opportunity must be seized instantly. The vibrations of hundreds of struggling humans carry through the water like a signal. The sharks arrive cautiously at first, circling just beyond sight. A fin appears briefly in the distance, then another. Most sailors notice them at the same moment. At first they hope the shapes are dolphins. They are not. The attacks begin almost quietly. One sailor disappears beneath the surface mid-sentence. Another screams as something jerks violently at his legs. The water erupts in sudden thrashing before returning to eerie calm. Men pull closer together instinctively, forming tight clusters, believing the sharks will target anyone alone on the edges. Sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. By midday, the heat becomes brutal. The sun beats down mercilessly on skin already blistered by salt water. Thirst begins clawing at their throats. Some sailors try to drink seawater despite warnings not to. Within hours, the salt drives them into delirium. They begin hallucinating. Men shout that they see islands on the horizon. Others swear they hear ship engines approaching. A few remove their life jackets and swim away confidently toward imaginary rescue ships that vanish into empty ocean. They never return. As the sun sets that first night, exhaustion settles in like a physical weight. The survivors are forced to stay awake because sleep means drifting apart from the group, and drifting apart means becoming an easy target. In the darkness below, the sharks continue circling. Occasionally, the water explodes into violence. A scream cuts through the night. Then, silence again. Day 2 arrives with fewer voices. The groups have grown smaller. Some men have died from injuries sustained during the sinking, others from dehydration or shock, and the sharks have grown bolder. Now they attack openly. A fin slices through the water, only feet away before lunging forward. Men kick, punch, scream, trying to push the predators away. Blood spreads quickly through the water, and the scent triggers more attacks. Some survivors later recall seeing dozens of sharks moving beneath them. The ocean has become a hunting ground. By the third day, the human mind begins to fracture under the strain. Conversations drift into nonsense. Some sailors insist the captain is nearby, organizing rescue efforts. Others claim they can see cities beneath the water. Groups that once stayed tightly packed begin dissolving as delirium pulls men in different directions. Still, a handful continue fighting to stay alive. They rotate positions within the cluster, so no one remains exposed on the outside for too long. They slap the water whenever fins approach, creating noise and movement meant to confuse the predators. It works just enough to keep them alive, but only barely. Late on the fourth morning, something changes. A patrol plane flying a routine anti-submarine mission spots an unusual pattern in the ocean below. Dark specks scattered across miles of water. At first, the pilot believes it's debris from a sunken vessel. Then, the specks begin moving. The plane circles lower, and suddenly, the crew realizes what they are seeing. hundreds of men, still alive. The radio transmission that follows triggers one of the largest rescue operations of the war. Ships race toward the coordinates. 80 aircraft drop life rafts and supplies. Sailors too weak to climb aboard must be physically pulled from the water. When the rescue is finally complete, only 316 of the original crew remain alive. The rest vanished into the Pacific over 4 days and 5 nights of drifting. Some claim the sharks were responsible for most of the deaths. Others said dehydration and exposure were the true killers. In reality, it was everything. The explosions, the sinking, the thirst, the sun, the delirium, and the endless open water where rescue never came until it almost didn't matter anymore. Long after the survivors returned home, many struggled to explain the experience because the sharks were terrifying. But the sharks were not the worst part. The worst part was the ocean itself, the endless horizon, the realization that no one knew where they were, the feeling of floating in a world so vast that human life barely registered as a disturbance on its surface. For 4 days, the Pacific Ocean simply continued existing around them, vast, indifferent, and impossibly deep. Ships would cross those waters again in the years that followed. Storms would come and go, waves would rise and fall, but somewhere beneath the surface of that same ocean, the memory of those drifting survivors would remain, a reminder that the most frightening thing about the sea was never the predators living inside it. It was the realization that once you are alone out there, surrounded by nothing but water and sky, the ocean doesn't need monsters to become terrifying.